This is lesson 12, which is 3.2 in the textbook, Angles Formed by Parallel Lines and Transversals. The objectives are to prove and use theorems about the angles formed by parallel lines and a transversal. And we start with a postulate, 3-2-1, which is the corresponding angles postulate. If two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the pair of corresponding angles are congruent. The very important thing to remember is that the lines that are cut by the transversal must be parallel in order for this to be true. Let's look at an example, and we are told to find each angle measure. And we have this diagram over here where we have GBC, which is 70 degrees. The corresponding angle would be over here, ECF, and we're supposed to find this one. And then we also have DCE and ABE, and they are corresponding angles. So we can look at the diagram and see that ECF is congruent to EBG by the corresponding angles postulate. So X, in this case, equals 70 degrees. The measure of ECF is 70 degrees. To find the measurement of DCE, we need to solve for X. Since they are corresponding angles and the lines that are cut are parallel, we know that 4x plus 22 equals 5x. And that's by the corresponding angles postulate. X equals 22. Subtract 4x from both sides. So the measure of DCE equals 5x, which would be 5 times 22. We're substituting the 22 for x. So the measure of angle DCE is 110 degrees. Now you give it a try. Pause the recorder while you work this out. You are trying to find the measurement of angle QRS. Did you get 118 degrees for X? And then through the definition of a linear pair, you would have found that the measure of QRS and X has to be 180 degrees. Then subtracting, and substituting in for X, the 118 degrees, we come up with the measure of QRS as 62 degrees. If a transversal is perpendicular to two parallel lines, all 8 angles are congruent. So, we need to remember that postulates are statements that are accepted without proof. And since the corresponding angles postulate is given as a postulate, it can be used to prove the next 3 theorems. Remember that theorems are statements that can be proven. So let's look at example 2. We want to find each angle measure. The measure of EDG, so EDG, this one that is labeled as X minus 30 degrees, and then BDG, which is X degrees. So the measure of EDG is 75, and this would be because of the alternate exterior angle theorem. And we use that information. We know that X minus 30 degrees is going to be 75 degrees. That's from the alternate exterior angles theorem. And then x would be 105 degrees. And this is because we add 30 to both sides. So the measure of angle BDG is 105 degrees. Now you try it. Pause the recorder while you work this problem out. As you can see, we have alternate interior angles, so we can set 2x plus 10 equal to 3x minus 15 degrees. By solving for x, we get that x is 25. Now we want to find ABD, which would be 2x plus 10. So we plug in the 25 for x, and we have 2 times 25 plus 10, which gives us 60. And this is through substitution. Let's look at a music example. Find x and y in the diagram. So if we look over here, we have an angle that is equal to 5x plus 5y, and another one equal to 5x plus 4y. If we look, we have 3 parallel lines and 2 transversals. By the alternate interior angles theorem, 5x plus 4y equals 55 degrees. If we're looking at this line P as our transversal, then we have alternate interior angles. By the corresponding angles postulate, 5x plus 5y equals 60 degrees. If we use these as a system of equations, we multiply or subtract actually the 5x plus 4y equals 55 from 5x plus 5y equals 60, and we come up with y equals 5. We can use that information to solve then for x. We'll plug this in, substitute the 5 for y, and simplify to solve for x. X equals 7 and y equals 5. Now you give it a try. Pause the recording and find the measures of the acute angles in the diagram. By the alternate exterior angles theorem, 25x plus 5y equals 125. And 25x plus 4y equals 120 degrees. Solving this, we know that an acute angle will be 180 degrees minus 125, or 55 degrees. The other acute angle will be 180 degrees minus 120, or 60 degrees. Let's look at some more problems. The instructions ask us for number 1 and 2 to determine whether each pair of angles is congruent according to the corresponding angles postulate. So we're looking here at angles 1 and 2. Remember that corresponding means that it's in the same position. We have an angle outside the parallel lines on the right-hand side of the transversal, and the other one is inside the two lines and on the opposite side of the transversal. These do not correspond with each other, so this is not congruent. Let's look at 3 and 4. Both are above the parallel line and on the same side of the transversal. These would be congruent. In the next section, we are asked to find each angle measure. Angle 1 corresponds with the 67-degree angle, so the measure is 67 degrees. If we're looking for the measure of HJK in number 4, we can set x equal to 142 degrees. For number 5, we are asked to find ABC, which would be the one labeled 4x. So we know that corresponding angles, 3x plus 23 is the same as 4x. We solve this and we come up with measure of ABC is 92 degrees. For number 6, once again, we can set 5x equal to 3x plus 50. And when we solve for x, we get 125 degrees for our angle. Let's try some more. Angle 3 is 111 degrees because it is an alternate interior angle. The measure of angle 4, because of the same side interior angle theorem, is 90 degrees. We have corresponding angles, S and 138, but what we're really looking for is X, RST. So these are alternate exterior angles, and they will be congruent as well. So this would be 128. That's a typographical error. It should be 138 degrees. For number 10, we have alternate interior angles. These would be congruent. So if we solve for A and plug the number back in, we get that the measure of MNP is 56 degrees. Looking at number 11, we also have alternate interior angles. Using 5y equals 2y plus 78, and then taking the y value and substituting it into the equation, we come up with measure of WXZ is 130 degrees. In number 12, for the measure of ABC, we know that these are same side interior angles. They will be supplementary, and therefore we come up with measure of angle ABC is 118 degrees. Please copy this organizer and write a contrast and comparison of complementary and supplementary angles. I want you to complete this organizer and place it in your folder for the next class period. The coming attractions are proving parallel lines, proving lines perpendicular, finding and using slopes of lines, and graphing and classifying lines.